My guest today is the author of Rush. Lisa Patton is the best-selling author of Whistling Dixie and A Nor'easter, Yankee Doodle Dixie, Southern as a Second Language, and now her fourth novel, Rush. I just feel like I'm going to break out into some sort of Southern accent. I can feel it happening.
Well, if you talk to me long enough, you're going to, because that's what my friends say that aren't from here, that once they're around me for an hour or two, they start talking like me. So, Robin.
I love it. It's just so lovely. It's just so beautiful to listen to. So Lisa was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and spent time, I love this, as a Vermont innkeeper. It makes me think of the Bob Newhart show. Until three Sub-Zero winter sent her speeding back down south. Lisa's a proud graduate of the University of Alabama and the mother of two sons and a third daughter named Rosie. Aww. And you and your husband live in Nashville, and that is on my list of places to come do an event. So I'm really excited for so many reasons to speak to you. I love Rush. I love talking to people about it. It is not to be missed.
Robin.
It's gorgeous, delicious, and you're welcome for so many reasons. One of the story behind the story I want to talk about, but really the characters are so meaningful and alive. Anyway, welcome formally to the show, Lisa Patton.
Oh, Robin, gosh, I'm gushing over here, but I'm so happy to be here, because I'm your big fan, and I love your precious personality. I love your accent. And so when you say that you want to come to Nashville, I want to tell you something. I've never been to Rhode Island. Never. And that's on my bucket list. Oh, my God.
You must come. We must do an exchange program.
Yes, I love that. Yes.
Rhode Island to Nashville in two easy steps. You have such an amazing tour. I mean, so Rush is just out. You've already done one event, though. Is that right? You've done one so far. You have such a huge list of events. I'm exhausted looking at this.
Well, that's so funny you should say that, because I'm working with a lady who jokingly calls herself the author killer. And I have a feeling that's going to happen to me, because normally I wouldn't have done that. But you know what, Robin? I so believe in the message of my book that I'm excited to share it with people and get around and talk to people about it. So I've agreed to do this long, expensive tour, but I don't think I'm going to be alive when it's finished.
So I think you're going to be even more energized just from reading the book and reading a little bit about you. And visit Lisa's site at lisapatton.com and find her on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, and all over the place with this amazing tour. So you don't want to miss. If Lisa's going to be where you are or you can get to, absolutely get to see her on her tour. It's such an important book. It's a great read, and it's one of those books I'm enjoying sharing, but the message is so important, timely. It's just something that really, that we wouldn't really, there's certainly conversation around race and healthcare and all of these things that are just, and access to things that people often take for granted is such an important conversation. And it just seems like even more so. I mean, Rush and this gorgeous mansion, this pink sorority house, this beautiful a Georgian mansion. Is that what it is?
You mean the style architecture?
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to quiz you on architecture. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
But so that will grab you. And one of my favorites, Adriana Trigiani, gives such a beautiful hurrah for it. She says you are in for a treat as the astute Lisa Patton takes you on a hayride through sorority life in the American South, written with humor, reverence, and enough treachery to make it real. Rush's magnificent story about mother's and daughter's legacy, tradition. I mean, all of it. You have all of it in this book. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
I tried.
I will. You did. This is like what I call just a reading with Robin, like my kind of book. As soon as I settled in and got to know the characters, and I really enjoy the way they have their own voice and are speaking to each other, so from different perspectives as you go along in the chapters. But it's just like the kind of book I like to read, and that's pretty much the most review I do of a book. I like to read, so you will love it too. That's my book. That's my review for this.
It's a beautiful review, and I'm so complimented because it's the kind of book I like to read too. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if I'm going to write it, but I appreciate your sweet words because that's made my day, Robin.
Oh, such my pleasure. That's what I love when I always have a few at the top of my mind when I'm out and about, because people will ask me, what are you reading? I mean, I'm in New York right now, and the book's been it's with me, and we're doing this interview, but I've run into a lot of people today, and I was at some of the publishing houses, and everyone wants to know what I'm reading. So I'm like, did you read Rush? Did you see Rush? Did you see we said Rush? You have to read Rush. So that's what I love. That's one of my favorite things to do. So talk about this story and the what ifs and that it almost wasn't written, and I'm going to let you take the airspace here.
Okay. Well, so you're right. It almost wasn't written. And the reason why is because when something makes you kind of unsettled, or it made me nervous thinking about writing it, because it caused me to be vulnerable and courageous myself to write about this topic. And I will tell you, I read a lot of Brené Brown while I was writing the story, because she's so big on allowing yourself to be vulnerable and daring to do what is uncomfortable. And I shouldn't say uncomfortable, but you read the story, and what I mean by that is,
I understand.
Yes, and let me explain how I happened upon the story. So I went to the ribbon cutting of our brand new sorority house at the University of Alabama. All of the original sorority houses have been torn down, and extremely large ones have taken their place, and that's largely because it's a huge school now with a huge football program. But they're 40,000 square foot sorority houses, so they're massive. And when I went, the housekeeper caught my eye. And the reason she did is because all the collegians were running up to her and hugging her and telling her they loved her. And she was telling them she loved them, and that you could tell they were just beside themselves to just be with her. And they loved her so much. And I thought, I want to feel loved by her. So I went up and introduced myself, and she was so sweet. And that conversation turned into, honestly, about an hour-and-a-half conversation, because I didn't want to leave her.
Wow.
My friends were leaving and going to the fraternity houses, to the parties, and I was like, no, I think I'm going to stay here and talk to her. And as you said earlier, I learned that she was reluctant to tell me, but I learned only because her best friend had recently died. Her best friend who worked at the sorority house as a cook had recently died, and this lady was very emotional about it. And I asked what happened, and she told me she had cancer, and she was upset because her friend was stubborn and she never would go to the doctor. And I said, why? And she finally said, well, baby, it's hard to pay for. I said, okay, and she learned she didn't have any insurance. And I was standing in a 40,000 square foot house, and it broke my heart. And the first thing I thought was, I never thought about that.
You never would have known. Right. You're a sorority girl. You're there. These people are taking care of you.
Yes.
It's alarming to think about, certainly, the cost of what it costs to be in a sorority, the opulence, and the whole, the South as in its history. So, you can see how these things happen, but these women were so loved and took care, like second mothers. These girls confided in them, as in the story. And I'm speaking to Lisa Patton. We're talking about her brand new novel, Rush. I'll be so corny here. Rush out and get it. You don't want to miss it. You will not put it down. It reminds me about, it's just everything I love about reading a book. That's this kind of story, and really makes you think. It will be one for your book club, some hard conversations to have depending on people's perspectives, where they're coming from, eye-opening. But yeah, so this woman had no insurance, and in fact, that was the case. That's what you learned in doing your research?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I started asking questions and talking to people in, all over, different house mothers on this campus and this campus and this campus, and in fraternities and sororities. And it broke my heart because it's not a benefit that's offered, never mind retirement, dental insurance, anything. And I felt like they've been working there 25 years, often in cases, and it made me think of not just sororities, but I mean, is it like that in schools? Or there are all kinds of instances that it could be the same. And I didn't research that. I really kept it with sororities and fraternities. But again, I never thought about it. Of course, I never thought about it as a collegian. But I never thought about it as an adult, and I feel bad about that. But I was so glad that I learned about it, because my heart's desire is someone in a position, that people who had been in sororities would read it and say, pick up the phone and say, we've got to change. This has got to change. And it was important to me.
That's how change happens, which is amazing, right? I mean, it can be a conversation and something people haven't thought about. And when you think about it that way, how could people not be on board? I would think, right?
Well, that's what I'm hoping and thinking. I just say it's something that's been overlooked, and I'm excited at the thought of it no longer being overlooked and things changing. It's like I said at the beginning of our conversation. It rattles a cage. And guess what, Robin? I was raised in the South in the 60s and 70s, and it was a different time back then. I mean, all of us, I think, were raised to be people pleasers. That Southern gentility where we're gracious hosts and hostesses, I should say, as it was back then. But it's the truth.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to step out of being a people pleaser, and I'm really trying to, and talking about voice and how important it is. I had a young girl the other day at my house. There were 6 young sorority girls who had just graduated from either Ole Miss or Alabama, and they were here. And we're blessed enough to have a swimming pool, and they were swimming in our pool. And one young girl says to me, "What would you tell your young 23-year-old self if you could do something differently?" And I love that question. And I, not having any daughters, had never had anyone say that to me. And I said, I would tell her she has a voice and she needs to use it. And she doesn't have to please everybody and always say yes. She can say the word no. And it felt great to say that.
It's so true. It's so empowering, and it is such a good question, thinking, what would I tell myself? And sometimes I still play that game, because that game of what would I tell my 23-year-old self, I feel like, if I were 10 years older now, I'd say, what would I tell my 50-whatever-year-old self? That always kind of works. Like, you want to sort of bring that bottom up and gain the wisdom. And it's the people-pleasing and the giving ourselves permission to have a voice. I mean, that is really something that is such more and more obviously a topic, and so important. And we're making strides. And I think the conversation, whether it's the arts, always will help to bring a conversation to light. And so reading books and talking about them, I mean, I can think of so many books in the recent past. Jodi Picoult's Small Great Things comes to mind, of opening up conversations that are, really hard and really, really important. When Help came out, too, in that book.
Of course.
I can think of some of the book club discussions about that. And so talk about some of your characters. They are great. I mean, I love, all of them, from Pearl and Callie and Lilith. I mean, You just, I was reading,
my gosh,
really? She was just like from your imagination. I know people always want to know, like, who is this based on? And I've certainly read enough books and spoken to enough authors to know, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Of course.
Fabulous imagination, but it's, you're not skewering anybody specifically. Or if you were, it's your own personal business.
I know, that's so funny. Well, I will say this. I love characters' names, and one of my point of view characters is Wilda, and she's 58 years old, and she's a people pleaser too, and she's got a little problem with a little insecure. And Lilith, my villain, knows exactly which buttons to push.
Sure,
Wilda.
as a villain always does. And poor Wilda, I'm like, oh my God, the money thing with the mother and the debt and the husband and the not exactly telling the truth. I mean, that happened. But I was like getting so nervous for her.
Oh my gosh. Well, Wilda's mother. I don't know if you can believe this or not, but Wilda's mother exists all over the place. I've met Wilda's mother so many times.
I'm sure you have. See, there goes my voice. I'm sure you have.
I'm telling you, Robin. She is a real live person, so is Wilda. But what's funny is her name came from my childhood best friend. One of her and college roommate. Her name was Wilda, and she always joked about her name and didn't like it. And I thought how much fun it would be to keep that name alive and name a lead character Wilda. It is because she called herself. Everybody called her Wildebeest, and she would joke about it. And so I used that in the book, and she get that name. That was her nickname, and she was funny about it. She'd joke about it, but we had the best time in college, so I want to kind of recreate that, No,
I was thinking about the relationships certainly that are built in college, and when the girls first meet each other, it's such an unusual time and space that these friendships form so quickly. And
I do.
And seeing, like Lilith's daughter,
Annie Laurie.
Oh, Annie Laurie. I'm thinking Laurie Mae. Yeah, Annie Laurie. And I read it so while ago. Oh, Annie Laurie. And just even that name right there tells you a lot. But seeing the relationship between that mother and daughter and how important carrying on the legacy is and the amount of pressure that is put on some of these kids and the way the girls try and work things out in their own way, I guess. There are never any spoilers, as you know, Lisa. There are never any spoilers about Reading with Robin. And I'm speaking with Lisa Patton. We're talking about a brand new novel, Rush. You must put this one on your list, and you're welcome. So these relationships are formed so fast and furiously. It's like they've known each other for a long time. So who are our main characters? The entering class at Ole Miss.
Well, the main characters, there are 3 point of view characters. There's Callie, who is an 18-year-old incoming freshman, and she becomes friends with Wilda's daughter, Ellie. Wilda's another point of view character. Ellie is not, but Wilda is. And then the 3rd point of view character is Miss Pearl, the housekeeper.
Yeah, Miss Pearl. Love her.
Miss Pearl. And I love her so much. But my villain doesn't have a point of view. However, she's everybody's villain in the story. And her daughter, Annie Laurie, as you mentioned before, is also an incoming freshman. So you get to know 3 incoming freshmen and also all the other girls on the hall. And I love that part because like you said, it really does talk about the bonding that goes on early on. Like right now, Rush is going on all over the country. And my niece is going through Rush and learning it right away. She's already made great friends because they do talk in the dorm after Rush is over for the day and they're exhausted and it's so fun to live right next door to each other. I mean, I got to relive my whole college life going through this book again and talk to so many young girls and as I interviewed them. I was texting with young girls for a year and a half, and they wouldn't text right back, of course, if they were in class or if they were out having fun. And I'd be dying to know something, and I'd have to wait an hour and a half. But they would always text back. But it was so fun to talk to them.
And I'm sure they were so happy to have someone listen. But what was surprising, or what are some of the things that have changed dramatically? And then, of course, the things that just, I'm sure, like the menu. I was thinking like a cookbook accompaniment would be really amazing. If people through book clubs love to cook, tailgate party or whatever. But, what are some of the surprising things?
Great question. And you learn about this in the book in a big way. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that there are people who earn their living as dorm room decorators.
I actually looked that up
no idea.
Because I was like, is she making this? I had a feeling it had to be too true to be made, not good enough to go to Bed Bath & Beyond and order and have it all ready. And I was like, there must be dorm room strategists, decorators. It just seemed so over the top that I figured it was true. So yeah, talk about that craziness a little bit.
Oh my goodness. So there are ladies, God bless them, who make their living decorating dorm rooms. And
wow.
Do a beautiful job. I've seen the pictures, and Southern Living has picked up on a lot of the dorm rooms, and they always cover it every fall because it's one year to the next. It's more beautiful, and all the hottest designs in decorating. They are more beautiful than most rooms in my house because I didn't have to stretch that much in the book. That's sort of a big part of the book is that.
I had a feeling, which is why it would just be such an awesome movie. And that's always, you can talk about
Girl,
that. But
from your lips to God's ears, I hope so.
Oh my God, it would be such a great movie because I could just picture it being so over the top and exactly as, and of course, these girls have really a triple, so they have a corner triple, really. So they have even a bigger room with more closets. And I just was, if you're reading this book, you're going to think back on your own experience. You can't not. And I just remember my roommate and I were just so excited to have coordinating sheets. And, that was...
Me too. It was about maybe 50 square feet, that room or whatever, where...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh. But this, I promise you, is like walking into a room in the White House, which is one of the things that I say in the book. Wow, that room looks like it belongs on the cover of a magazine or inside the White House. But it's the truth.
It's just incredible. I was thinking, I could tell, obviously, you have fabulous storytelling ability and great creativity, but I thought this has just got to be a real thing. And also the tailgate party that Lilith, is that also
a real thing?
That's a real thing, too. Chandelier hanging in the tent and all.
It is. It is. See why you need to come down here and let me show you around?
I absolutely will. Well, there's a book club that I'm very partial to in Nashville, and they've been wanting to do something. So we'll have to connect about that. I actually thought to myself, if these women have not read this book yet, well, it's just out, so they probably haven't, but they must put this on their list. And what is the conversation like, though, too, when really talking about race and class and privilege? And that's all the rage to talk about. Honest discussions, and then where do those discussions then move into some action? And that's really what we started talking about earlier, about how the people that run these homes and take care of these girls are taking care of themselves.
Yes, and one of the things that I really am proud about in the book is I kind of, even though it's a novel, I create the story around the plan for action and exactly how they would make the change. And I like that was worked into the story. And I set the book on the Ole Miss campus. I don't know if we've talked about that yet. Have we talked about that?
No, we have not. But that is not where you went, but it's just a big school, and you said it at Ole Miss.
I did because Rush is such a big deal there. And it's also a big deal where I went to school at University of Alabama, But the reason I chose Oxford, there are several reasons, but it's the local color of Oxford is incredible. Have you ever been, Robin?
I have not. No, I haven't, but I know there's a fabulous bookstore, and it's on my list.
Square Books is on the square, and a statue of William Faulkner sits there, and you know from reading the book all about the town square. But and then Eli Manning, he had just been nominated for the Walter Payton Humanitarian of the Year Award. And I wanted to work him into the story because although I've never talked to him and his wife, Abby, who both went to Ole Miss, they are known as great philanthropists. And I was assuming he'd probably be on board with me. I have a feeling he really would. So I thought it would be fun to create that story on his campus, and work him, since he's a public figure, into the story.
Yes.
And even though he's not a big character.
Is he going to play himself in the movie?
Yes. You know what? We're in talks with his agent right now, but I'm assuming that he'll be all good with that.
I think so. I would. He'd have my vote. I mean, it's just the whole color and the flavor, and it's not a part of everybody's experience. I mean, where I went to college, there really weren't sororities. But I don't know if I told you this, or maybe I told this to Katie when we were going back and forth, but I did actually start a sorority in college.
No. Are you serious?
Obviously, we had, there was one sorority and one fraternity, and it was just not a thing. And so the guys started, one of our friends' groups started a fraternity, so I was like, well, we're starting a sorority, and I woke up my roommate. She still tells the story. She says, dumped one of my bottles on her head to wake her up, which I didn't do, but we went to go in front of the Greek council with our charter, and anyway, we formed a local chapter of our own idea of a sorority, but they did eventually, when I was a senior, go national in the sorority there 30 years later, and there are a lot of sororities and fraternities at the college, so it was really a cool thing, but it wasn't, we did not have a house or, I'm always planning parties, Lisa, somehow. But that was what I did as a freshman. Yeah, I was very focused on my studies. Yeah.
You're so adorable. I mean, I can see that you would be, we've never even met, but of course I feel like I know you from your podcast, but I can see how you would be the one to start a sorority.
Yeah. Well, I think
because you're so warm and inviting.
Oh, thank you. Well, I was like, I like a party, and I was like, let's just invite all the girls we really like into our 50 square foot room, and we made slice and bake cookies in our little toaster oven, and we popped popcorn. That was all we had, and we didn't have a bar set up like Annie Laurie did, and in that room of hers with a safe. I almost gasped the part. Well, we don't tell spoilers, but the part where Ellie gives up that there's a safe in the room. I'm like, that's why there's a safe. You don't talk about a safe. It's a secret thing. Why is she talking about a safe? Anyway, I'm not giving. It's such a charming, smooth, awesome, gorgeous book. I love it. And the mother-daughter stuff. Before I let you go, talk about the pressure on these girls, and also just living up to those expectations and blazing your own trail. And is that possible to do, and at what cost?
Well, first of all, these girls, from some women, do have the pressure to join a sorority first if their mothers or grandmothers were, because it tends to be a legacy, something in families, and that pin is handed down from generation to generation. So there's a lot of pressure from some to have their daughters belong in their sorority. Well, of course, it's a little bit controversial now because it's not as easy as it used to be. There's so many girls that want to go out for Rush and only a limited number of spots. So a lot of people do get, as they say, cut. And tears are the order of the day all the time. And it's really hard. There's that side of it, which I touch in the book too, that's very, very hard. But, yes, there's a lot of pressure from mothers and grandmothers on their daughters. This book is all about mothers and daughters in so many, from so many sides, mothers and daughters. But you asked me about the pressure, and then, you asked me one other thing about
I
it,
don't
too.
remember anymore. Don't worry about it.
We're
sure it wasn't important. I'm just like all over the place because there's so much about this book that I love, and yet I don't like to give too much about it away. So mostly I just wanted to chat with you, and I am on the phone with Lisa Patton. We're talking Rush. You can find Lisa and her amazing tour, killer author tour on lisapatton.com. Killer author, but I have a feeling that you can even add more to this, and it would still be cool. And it's just going to be fabulous. And find her on Facebook and on Instagram and Twitter and every place. And
Rosie, have you seen Rosie? Have you heard about Rosie?
Your little puppy?
Yes. So she helps me promote the book because I have my little app where I make Rosie's mouth move and try to give her little funny snippets. And like she's going through Rush, I found a pink seersucker dress with eyes all on it.
I know who Rosie is, but I did not have to go check that out because there's nothing really that I love more than puppies.
Robin, you'll get a kick out of Rosie. She's funny, and I get a kick out of Rosie because I get to do something fun to promote the book from her point of view rather than just, here's another, oh my gosh, here she comes again saying Rush is going to be out in 2 weeks, 1 week, 5 days, 3 days. For goodness sakes, can I just apologize to anybody who follows me right now for all the shameless self-promotion? Even I'm so sick of it, I could scream.
It's so important. Look at all the books out there, and you have to. I know. If it was my book, I would be so sick of myself. However,
I'm so sick of myself. Oh my God!
But you can't be because it's so awesome. So let everybody else scream about it everywhere. That's the thing that's fun about book tour and book promotion. But a puppy is always a happy thing. So that's on the Instagram. I will have to check that out.
That's on Instagram and Facebook because she and now Rosie Imogene Patton has her own Instagram account and has more followers than she follows. So I'm real proud of her.
Wait, I'm so silly. Well, I'll have to check. Well, have you seen Benny Irving? Now I'm such a doggy mother because our puppy has his own Instagram as well. He's Benny Irving.
Okay, let me write that down. What is her Instagram?
I'll have to check out Rosie. Yeah, he's Benny Irving the Corgi. He's 11 months old.
Wait. I do know Benny Irving the Corgi. I think Rosie follows Benny Irving the Corgi.
Oh, okay. Well,
I think she already follows it.
I'm not in charge of Benny Irving's account, but I'll have to talk to his sister. So I'll have to check out Rosie's. That's so funny. I know. That's the most fun.
Oh, it's so fun to be silly, isn't it? Oh, I just love it.
I like to do things that amuse, that keep me entertained and amusing. That's Reading with Robin's really all about that. It's what I enjoy and love to share, and it's all fun. Otherwise, really, what's the point in reading if you're not going to just love it, soak it up, and share it with everybody? So
yes,
I do.
Well, you know what? And you're so magnificent at it, Robin. Gosh, your personality is so precious. I don't even want to hang up from you, okay? That's how much I love you and love talking to you. You would be my dear, dear friend if you lived here. And you don't even have to live here to be my dear friend, but I adore you, Robin.
Lisa. I know that we're going to meet, and I'm planning this event in my head. I know you have so much going on. You are really, I'm looking at this tour, but like so much fun and all different kinds of things and garden clubs and and in the libraries and at some of my favorite bookstores. And this is like the perfect gift to give your daughter as she's heading off to college. Just give her a copy of Rush when she needs a little bit of a little me time. And just plant them all over the sorority houses. Right?
Well, I want to get the word out to the sorority houses. I'm trying to figure out how to do that. My son told me he has a friend who's one of these young girl influencers that he was hoping that maybe she would put it on her Instagram. You know, I said, okay.
Well, I have my niece is a sorority girl at Tulane, so I will see if they can do that too. They're sorority girls. And they're rushing. The little one's going to be rushing because I assume she's going to rush her sister's sister, so she's a sister of her sister. It's very confusing. But, let me kind of give this some thought. I think that's like the whole sorority tour. I mean,
it would be great.
I'll kill you. If your publicist doesn't kill you, I can.
If it would promote change and if it would get the word out, I'm willing. Like I said in the beginning, that's why I'm willing.
That's where the whole thing starts. The conversation that you have when you are at the sorority house and you're speaking to this most beloved woman, and she reluctantly tells you a story. I have a feeling you're really good at getting the story out of people, and as a good listener, and you just must have been sitting there thinking, wow, this is quite a story, and it's so important, and you've woven it into this just gorgeous, beautiful novel called Rush, and I'm going to let you go before
Do you have to?
Well, I feel like I probably should check in on somebody, or somebody's going to probably be needing me. But no, I'd much rather speak to you, and I will absolutely look forward to meeting you.
When you come stay with me in Nashville, right?
I love it. I love it. I can't wait.
Okay.
I love Nashville. Thank you so much. Lisa Patton, it's Rush. It is a rush. It is a fabulous book. Give yourself a treat of a book. It's a joy to have you on the show, and I look forward to more. And I've got your email, so you won't be able to hide. I know where you are.
And neither were you. Thank you, Robin. Okay, have a good time tonight.
And I'll be checking in on you and Rosie. Take care.
Okay. I'll be checking in on you. Okay, Robin.
Thank you. Thanks,
Talk
Lisa.
to you soon.